All right, I love one service. I love us gathering here together. I love the fact that we get to do this. There's just an energy in the room that's just a little bit different. There's an energy in the room that just feels a little separate. I just love these kind of moments. So before we go anywhere else, a couple of things I want to hit you with real fast. I was told right up front to not talk about Bedlam at all. And so this is me not talking about Bedlam at all to you, okay? Because I want your heart to be open and willing to receive from the Lord, all right? And so I won't say anything about that at all. But I wanted to also talk to you real fast about, first off, how about my buddy Richard Hopper that just got up here, pour it up. About tired of people taking my job from me, but it's okay. I'll just let it be what it is at this point. So Pastor Brent is not here today. If you don't know me, my name is Matt. I'm one of the pastors here. I've been here for about 10 years now, and I love this place. I love this job. Pastor Brent's actually out in Daisy right now. He's killing a bunch of Bambies, and so that's just where he's at this point. So whatever you want to do there. I do want to say this, and I'm not saying this because, I don't believe we need to worship men. I think that's wrong, but I do think that honoring men is important, and I am just so thankful that we have an incredible pastor with vision, clarity, ideas of where we're going in 2022. Can you give it up for your pastor, Pastor Brent? We love him. I know he's watching us right now. I love you. I'm glad you're here with us today. And I want to talk real fast, and I'm going to be honest, this was an incredible, man, what an incredible service this was already, the worship time and all this stuff. And today is going to be a very, very tough sermon, okay? Just right up front, it's not going to be easy. And I'm going to give you a disclaimer today, if you don't mind. Sometimes I wish pastors would say this more. And when I say I wish pastors would say this more, I wish really Christians would say this more. I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? If you don't know me, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to be like, I'm not okay today. I'm going to be very blunt with you. I'm glad you're here today. It took a lot for me to come here today. And I work here. It's been a rough season of life, and I don't want to keep rehashing these things over and over and over, but what we're going to talk about today is not easy. My stomach hurts. I don't want to talk about this stuff, but it's important that we do. And actually, we're in a series called You Asked For It, and the idea behind the series was, what are some things that you want to know about? What are some things that you want to talk about? And we talked about spiritual warfare. That was the number one thing you guys asked about. We talked about parenting. That was number 2. And today, this one was weird. It came out of left field. Didn't think this was going to be what we were going to talk about today, but this was the third most asked question, and I'm going to talk about it here today. But I'm just going to be honest again with you. I love you, and I am so glad you're here today. And I don't feel okay in my heart right now. I don't. And I just have to be honest with you. If I'm going to bring you the word, you need me to be honest. And I don't feel okay, but I think there's hope in the fact that if I'm not okay and you're not okay, then maybe that means that somewhere in there we can be okay, right? That in some capacity as a family we can come together, and what breaks you can heal me. We can work together and make these things, form these things out together. I don't know. I don't know why heart hurts so bad. I don't know why pain hurts so bad. I don't get it all. I don't understand all the things, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But what I know is I need the church to heal. I need this body right here to heal. I need you guys to be involved here so we can come together and heal together, right? That we can work together, that the Bible tells us that we're the family and the body of God, that if you're missing, then we're hurting, that if I'm missing, that you're hurting. That's how connected we need to be, and I hope that I hope for a miracle today, if I can be honest. And so if you guys are with me today, I'm just going to be very transparent all morning long. And so what I want to do is I want to pray. And we're going to have fun today, don't get me wrong. But I want to pray, and then I want to get into this. You guys good today? Everyone good? All right, let's pray. God, I love you, and I thank you for today. Lord, I just need strength today to get through what we're talking about. I need strength today to get through the things that we're going to go over. And Lord, even things that we're talking about today, I don't know how much I even truly believe them right now in this moment, but God, I'm trusting in you, not in myself, not in my own confidence, but I'm trusting in you here today. God, I'm praying that we would just work this out together. God, I pray for the husband in the room right now he's had Thanksgiving break to do that honey-do list, and he hasn't touched it at all. And so God, today, that's what his goal is. Lord, I pray that you just give him grace so his wife doesn't yell at him. And it's in your name I pray. And everybody said, all right, let's get after today. I was thinking about, in the beginning when I started thinking through this sermon, I was thinking about how thankful I am for the opportunities that I get. I love this church. Been here for a long long time. Really got here in about 2002. Been on staff for about 10 years, but I love this church and I love all the things that God's doing here and the opportunities that I have in this church. For 31 years, God's provided for his church. And one of the honors that I get to have at this church is I get to be the pastor of the ministries of our church, which means if there's a ministry going on at church, I get to be involved in it in some capacity. I get to know about it, I get to craft it, I get to see where it goes in the future. But I'm gonna be honest, I have always had a heart for the next generation, specifically for teenagers. I just love working with teenagers. By the way, are there any teenagers in the room here today? Any teenagers? Where we at? Okay, yeah. Okay, oh, it's 11 o'clock, you're still tired. Okay, I get that, but I love teenagers. I love working with the next generation because it gives me hope. It gives me, I know the world can look at, the next generation can look at teenagers and think of them as just entitled brats that only care about themselves. But I want to tell you how I think about them. I see them as entitled brats who only care about themselves. But here's also what I see. I see a generation of leaders. I see the next group that's gonna lead this church. I love these moments of worship here with Mike and Paul and everyone up here singing, but I also love the Sundays that you guys don't always get to see where they're leading our next generation worship team together, showing them how to do this, because one day, right, it's gonna be theirs. One day, it's not gonna be Pastor Brent and I, it's gonna be somebody else, and it's gonna be incredible, and God's gonna take care of his church. But I'm gonna be honest with you, one of the things about the next generation that I'm a little frustrated with, if I can be honest, is this idea, this thing they have in life. Let me just be honest with you, I'm just jealous, really. Because they have a lot more cool things than I had when I was growing up. Like the next generation, they have no idea what a floppy disk is, right? Like that doesn't compute. Like they don't understand that. Like in the next generation, they've never had to like pull out a map, right? And try to navigate where they're at. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't either. But anyways, they've never had to pull one out and try to figure it out. They have it on their phone, right? How many are you guys still map people, still rocking the maps in your travel? Anyone in here? Okay, yeah, okay. I'm sorry for your life, okay? And then they couldn't comprehend a payphone. Anyone like a payphone is just for like an Instagram picture for them now. That's what that's about. They couldn't even understand the idea of that one point in our lives that your phone was connected to your wall and it had a cord, and if you went any farther than one spot, it would break off the wall and you wouldn't have anything to talk. They don't understand that, right? We have cell phones. They can certainly not understand the idea that if they wanted to hear their favorite song on the radio, they had to what? Wait for that song to roll back around for it to come back on. They don't have it just instantly. But probably the thing I'm the most jealous about that these kids have that they grew up with, but I have it now as well, is this thing right here. It's Amazon, all right? I don't know how many of you guys are Amazon people. I will put my wish list out there so you can buy me stuff if you want. But Amazon, and so, but mainly my wife, probably because she's fiscally irresponsible, she loves Amazon. And one of the things about Amazon, and maybe the worst thing in the world outside of the Antichrist is the Amazon Prime membership, right? Like it has to be 1A, 1B, I'm not sure. But the idea there, if you have an Amazon Prime account, what can happen is you can order something and realistically you could get it the very next day. You don't have to get up, you don't have to go to the store, you don't have to go through Walmart, you don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. You can get it the next day. Some parts you can actually get it the same day. That's an incredible thing. And so I was gonna go on a trip a couple months ago, and I wanted to buy a bag. Like I needed a book bag, and I wanted to get something to travel with. We were actually gonna go to Disney, and so I wanted to get a bag that I could carry around. And so I got on Amazon, and I started searching for what I needed. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna leave here in a couple days, so I need to get this thing here like tomorrow, okay? I need to get this bag as quickly as possible. And so I get on there, and I find this like really cool, like it's a Carhartt bag. I don't know anything about Carhartt, I just like the color of it. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy this bag, and I'm gonna take it to Disney. I'm really excited about it. And so I get on there, and I pay the money for it and everything, and I pay for the bag, and I'm waiting. So the next day, UPS shows up, they pass me off the box, and I'm excited about what I have inside of it. Now, real fast, if Amazon is an issue in your house, will you raise up your hand? If that's an issue, yeah, that's what I thought, okay, yeah. That was just a freebie. I wanted to laugh at you. And so one of the things though is I got the box and I thought, man, this is gonna be awesome. The box is a little small, but it's fine. It's gonna be awesome. I'm ready for this backpack. I'm ready to get it out. I'm ready to go and work this out. And here's the thing. I opened the box up. I got the box cutter, cut it open, undid it. It's in a bag. So I rip open the bag. I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Like it's not the size I thought it was, but it's probably gonna be okay. I mean, I need it just for a couple things. Come to find out, this is actually what I bought right here. Yeah. I didn't really know exactly how this was going to work for me. So I thought, okay, if I walk around like Disney with this feels awkward to me. Don't know what bag this is for. Maybe it's for a teenager. You're gonna have to get up here and get this off me, Cass. Oh God, I really can't. Okay, but I thought, okay, I don't know what to do with this. This isn't anything of what I actually wanted. It's not what I wanted. It's really not what I expected. It's not really anything that I need. Here's what I want to talk about today. The third most asked question today was, how do we handle grief? How do we handle grief? Because isn't grief a lot of times the same thing? It's not what you wanted, really not what you expected in life. You know those things, those moments in your life where everything's going good, like your day is great, everything's running well, and then just something punches you in the gut? You know what I'm talking about? Those moments where things don't go the way you expected them to go. Those moments where you feel like, God, I'm serving you. God, I'm doing everything you want me to do, but I just can't get over this. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's something that happened in your life. Maybe it's something that someone's done to you. But for a lot of us, grief holds us back. When we talk about grief, we have to talk about how do we handle these things in our life. You see, in this world that we're in, we live in this weird portion of time. John 16, Jesus is on the earth, and he says, in this world you'll be of great trials and tribulations. I think all of us in this room could say that we've lived that. We've lived in great trials and tribulations. What's 2021 been for you? What's 2020 been for you? What's 2019 for you, right? We're in trial and tribulation, so we live, there's a bookend right there. But then Revelation 22 tells us that there's gonna come a day where he wipes away every tear from your eye, that he takes all the pain, the hurt, the depression, he takes that away from you. So there's these two bookends in life, right? There's this bookend of that we're in trials and tribulation, and a bookend where everything gets better, that God takes all the pain away. And where we are is right here in the middle of all of that. And it's one of the worst places to be. It's one of the hardest places to be. But there's a way through it, and there's a way to work through it. So in this world, we're gonna have grief. But how we handle it's up to us. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about Cassie and I's story, but if you don't know, right up front, Cassie and I, about 3 months ago today, we lost our little girl. And it was horrific. And that's what I'm saying, I don't feel good up here today. I don't wanna talk about this. But as I was reading and writing and thinking through all this, God showed up in my life. And for some of you today that are dealing with grief, and maybe you're like, hey man, I'm in the best part of my life. I don't have any grief, I'm good. And hold some of these things in your heart for a while, because there's coming a day where it'll hit you. So in Luke chapter 7, this is where we're gonna go today. Luke chapter 7, Jesus encounters a woman torn apart by grief. This is the person who's broken here today. This is the one who cries tears that no one ever knows about. This is the person who even though it's been years and years and years, you still struggle with that same emotion, that same feeling, that person who left you, that person that died, whatever it looks like for your life, whatever's bringing you grief, this story is for you and is for us in this room here together. Luke chapter 7, it reads it like this. Chapter 7, verse 11, it says, afterwards, he was on his way to a town called Nain. His disciples and a large crowd were traveling there with him. Jesus was healing people, right? He was God incarnate on the earth. He was walking. He had just came off of healing a Roman centurion's son. He was just this amazing moment. Jesus was just in the middle of his ministry. And the Bible tells us he's walking into this town called Nain. And as he's walking in there, he has all of his people around him. He has all of his crowd around him. People have seen him do miracles. People have seen him do the things that they worshiped him about. People saw those things and they were with him, and it's really kind of a joyous crowd, right? It's this group of people who are worshiping. It's this group of people who are excited. This group of people who maybe in that crowd was the person who was blind and Jesus gave them sight. Maybe in this crowd was the person whose hand was really disfigured and Jesus made it whole. Maybe in this crowd were the people that Jesus said, get up and walk. It's what this looks like. This is a joyous crowd of people who were just had miracles happen around them. Amazing things happening, and Jesus ministry. Verse 12 says it like this: just as he neared the gate of the town, a dead man was being carried out. He was his mother's only son, and she was a widow. A large crowd from the town was also with her. When the Lord saw her, when Jesus saw her, he had compassion on her and said, "Don't weep." Then he came up and he touched the open coffin, and the pallbearers stopped. And he said, "Young man, I tell you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. This is a beautiful story of Jesus and his mercy, and Jesus and his grace, and all the things that God does. But there's grief in this story as well. And there's some important things that we need to look at in this story. So if you have notes, we're gonna run through these very, very fast. So here we go. Number one, here's the first point I want to hit you with real fast. It says, Jesus, we got to see in our grief, we need to see Jesus' compassion in our grief. Jesus' compassion in our grief. Verse 12 says like this: as he neared the gate of the town, a dead man was being carried out. He was his mother's only son, and she was a widow. A large crowd from the town was also with her. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said, "Don't weep." I want you to think about the first funeral that you were ever a part of, first funeral that you ever were at, the first funeral that you ever got to see. You know what those funerals feel like, right? Maybe it was in this room, maybe it was somewhere else. But those funerals, that feeling of death, that feeling of brokenness, that feeling of unease, that feeling of maybe when they opened up the casket the first time you saw something like that jarring moment in your life. This is the scene in which we see Jesus here. And we see Jesus and his crew. They're excited, they're happy. And as they're walking, they come across a funeral procession. They come across a family that's mourning. They come across a young woman, a mom who has no one else, a widow who has no one else, who's about to bury their own son. They come together and converge together in this moment. In antiquity, they would bury the dead in the afternoon time. So this is kind of where we're at with Jesus' story. And we know from the words of Jesus as he's saying this, that this man's a young man. He's probably in his 30s, probably in his 40s. John describes this woman as a widow. So historically speaking, in antiquity, this woman was probably illiterate. She probably didn't have anything of value to give to the culture around her other than work. She was probably only a homemaker. And then her only son, who was gonna provide for her, because that's how it happened in that culture. Her only son who was gonna provide for her, he died. So she's lost her husband, she's lost her only son. And so in this moment, not only is she mourning her husband and her son, she's also mourning the life that she's about to live, because quite honestly, she's probably gonna have to become a slave. Quite honestly, she's probably gonna have to become a prostitute. This is the culture in which they live in. She had no options left. For some of you that are in the middle of your grief struggles right now, whatever that looks like, you might feel this way today, that you have no other options left. That's why in this room, and we just gotta be honest with each other, that's why in this room there's so many of us that have those suicidal thoughts in our mind, right? That I don't have any other options left in my life. I don't know what else to do. I know there are teenagers in this room right now that they feel like suicide might be the only option for their life. This is where this lady might be at. And what I want you to know today is your grief and your pain are never too big for God to overcome in your life, okay? That we still need you. Your life still has value. Even though you're stricken with grief, it doesn't mean that you've lost value. It just means that you're hurting inside, and that God still sees you, and that God still loves you, and that this church still loves you, and this church still cares for you. God's potential is always greater than the pain you have in your life. That even though you feel like there's no options left for you, even though you feel like there's nothing else you can get by, God can still bring out good from your bad. That's the story of the gospel. That's the story of Jesus. Just because you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel doesn't mean it's not there. You have options. This young lady, she didn't know what to do. The Bible says he saw her and his heart went out to her. He was overcome with emotion. His heart was broken for her. He saw the pain of a single mom. I know we have single parents in the room. Jesus sees the pain that you've walked through. Jesus sees the pain that you're going through. He sees the death of a son. And I just wonder a little bit if Jesus, his heart goes out to him because Jesus sees himself in this story, the only son that one day would die for all of humanity. I wonder if he sees himself in this story. For those of you that are in pain today, that are hurting on the inside, whatever that circumstance is, I need you to hear that Jesus sees you and he's moved with compassion for you. He sees your heart. He understands your pain. He didn't just let it happen and walk away from you. He's involved in every moment of it. I love Psalms 56. I think we have it up there. Mindy, put it up there for me if you don't mind. He says, you've kept track of all of my wanderings and my weepings. You've stored my many tears in your bottle. Not one will be lost. They are all recorded in your book of remembrance. Here's just a quick Bible trivia thing for you. There's two books that God has. There's a book of life and a book of remembrance. The book of remembrance, you'll see this in the book of Malachi, that God and his council get together and they write stories about the people of God, that God has a book with your name written on it, and he's writing the story of your life. He's reading the story of your life. He's seeing the things that you've done. And this verse just said that he takes your tears and he puts them in a bottle. And if I'm honest with you right now, if one of you took my tears and put them in a bottle, I'd call you weird, right? Because that's weird. I don't understand that. But what this verse is telling us is Jesus cares so much for you that not one of your tears have ever been lost, that not one of your tears have ever been disregarded by God, that God sees your pain, that God's invested in your pain, God's involved in your pain, and he's not gonna let you stay in your pain. This is our God, and I apologize for yelling, but these are truths that I have to learn myself. That he sees you, that he's moved with compassion towards you, that he cares about your life. The same one who bottles up your tears is the same one day in heaven that's going to reach up and brush those tears from your face. Focus on the compassion of Jesus in your grief. Here's number 2. You guys still with me right now? We're going to talk about Jesus' closeness in our grief. Jesus' closeness in our grief. The story tells us that he looks at her and he says, don't weep. You know what you say to those who are grieving really, really matters, right? Like some of us, we need to come up with eloquent things to say. Like I'm a pastor, I feel like I got to have all these right things to say to somebody in the middle of grief. But the truth is, if you've been involved in any kind of pain or turmoil, you're not going to remember what most people said. Presence matters. Being there for someone matters, right? But it does matter what you do say to people if it's the wrong thing. So if you look at somebody and say, well, you know what, it's just about time for you to move on. Can we just be honest? That's the worst thing you can say. If you've lost somebody and you look at them and say, it's time for you to move on, I'm 3 months in. I'm not, some of you guys have been years and years in. I'm never gonna move on from this. Never. I miss my little girl. I want her here. I'm never gonna move on from that moment. They're never gonna move on. And so what you say to someone, it matters. This story's interesting because Jesus, he could have just went on his day. He didn't have to show up at this town. He didn't have to really even interact with this woman. He didn't have to do any of that kind of stuff. But he was there on assignment. And I need you to know today that in the middle of your grief, in the middle of your pain, Jesus is closer to you than you can even understand. Jesus looks at her and he says, don't cry. Now, this woman, this could come across as harsh, right? He's walking up this woman's, she's carrying out with the people around her son who's just died. He walks by her and he says, hey, don't cry. How can you tell me not to cry? My son just died. Who are you? Who are you to tell me that I shouldn't cry right here? Like that's crazy. She could have been offended by that. For some of us in our grief, that's where we get, right? God, who are you to tell me not to cry? Because you're the one who let this happen. God, who are you to tell me not to react this way? Because God, you could have fixed it and still you didn't fix it. God, you could have changed this. We can get mad at God and we can even question God in some capacities. But today's a very honest day. We as Christians, we have to become okay with this word right here. You guys ready? Here it is. Mystery. There are mysteries in the Bible that we're never gonna understand. You get that? Like, I can get up here and you can come into my office and we can have a counseling session and I can try to make your life better and give you the right answers. But can I just be honest? There's things in the Bible that just don't make sense, that we're never gonna understand on this side of eternity. I don't know why that person in your life died. I don't know why that job fell through. I don't understand it. I don't see the scope of God like he sees it. We have to be okay with mysteries. And I know so many pastors that can get behind a pulpit and try to give you the right answers. And I'm just gonna tell you, a lot of times they're completely wrong because there's just mysteries that we will never, ever understand. And at some point, you have to get okay with that. It says, lean not on your own understandings, right? Because so many times our understandings get in the way of our faith. Sometimes it's just the faith that you have to get through. Jesus wasn't being callous here in this moment, by the way. And Jesus understands crying. He understands weeping. Do you guys remember the story of Lazarus? Lazarus dies, and Jesus sits next to him. Lazarus dies, and Jesus just sits down, and he starts weeping. The Bible says he's moved with compassion. He starts crying. This is probably the most visceral emotion that you're ever going to see out of God on the earth. This amazing moment of Jesus weeping and crying. And again, when we talk about mystery, here's what I've never understood about this story. Jesus knows what he's about to do, right? You know the story of Lazarus. He cries, and then like 10 minutes later, he raises him from the dead. He knows what he's about to do, and yet he still cries. Why? Why would he still cry? Can I just give you what I think might be an option? Because truly, you and I in this world, we weren't built for death, right? You weren't built for your child to die. You weren't built for your spouse to die. We weren't built for those things. And Jesus, in that moment, he's angry. He's angry at the devil. He's angry at sin. He's angry at the world that's so broken around him. And he cries about it. He cries because he's also compassionate. Because even though it's broken, he knows that he's going to fix it one day. Even though it's broken, he knows he's about to make it right in some way in your life. He cries. He's moved with emotion. He's close to people. He cares about those things. Because honestly, even though Jesus understands the outcome of your story, it never negates the pain that you're in here today. He knows how it's going to end, but he doesn't look at you in the middle of your pain and say, "What are you doing?" He looks at it and says, I know. I know what it's like to lose. I know what it's like to feel pain. On the cross, he looks down at John and he says, "John, take care of my mom. John, take care." Like, he feels that emotion. He feels the pain of life. In the garden, he's crying and he's praying and he's stressed out and in this moment of, "God, fix this, please." And it doesn't. He understands the emotion of life. And so just know that he's close to you right now and he understands where you're at. That makes sense, everybody? Let's keep going. Here's the last one. In our grief, we need to look at Jesus' contact. Jesus' contact in our grief. I am an unapologetic hugger, all right? I know some of you guys are not huggers in this room, but I will find you one day and I will grab you. But I am an unapologetic hugger. And I think that there is nothing better than a good hug, all right? There's just something about human touch that matters. It's one of the first things you do when you get the baby, right? That you get it and you have that bonding moment where you get together and you just like like it's this moment of beauty. I love hugs. I love these moments of contact where we can just touch, even though we're high-fiving, I love those things. And in your grief, you need to understand that Jesus is just as close to you. He's just as compassionate, but he's also there to touch. He has contact with you. Verse 13 says like this: "When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her. He said, 'Don't weep.' Then he came up and touched the open coffin, and the pallbearer stopped, and he said, 'Young man, I tell you, get up.' The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother." Think about this moment. He says, "Don't weep." Then he walks up to the box and he touches it. And he says, "Get up." Think of this moment. Box shakes. Air fills back up in the lungs. Eyes open. And he sits up. And he wakes up. And there's not a lot of white space here. There's not a lot of we don't know exactly what happened. I wonder what he's doing when he wakes up. Is he angry? Is he I don't know. He's happy, he's excited. I don't know what it looks like, but he wakes up. And it's this beautiful, beautiful moment. Not brain dead, not decayed, fully back to life. In your grief, I would just say, let the King of Kings put his healing hand on your life, right? Let him touch those things that are broken. Let him touch those moments, those pains that are broken. I heard a long time ago that God loves to turn crucifixions into resurrections. And in your own life, that can happen, right? In your own life, that can change. And so I want to real fast, I want to talk about this right here. Don't worry, there's nothing in it. But this right here is It's a box. What happened is last May, I think, Cass and I were fighting like cats and dogs, big time. Like we were just fighting big time, and it was nuts. And we were fighting so much to the point that I asked Will to book us a Disney vacation because I had to get something to get her to be happy with me. And so we got that together. And one day we were having a super romantic lunch. Like we just wanted to have like a romantic moment. And so we were like, let's just do this. So we went to Subway, and she's real quiet. It's weird. In Subway, and we come back and drive down that drive. We pull under this awning right here, go back to work, and she says, she just busts out with, "I'm pregnant." Oof, okay. I said, "Are you sure?" She pulled out 12 pregnancy tests. She thought I was gonna be mad. I was so excited. So excited. I want a little girl, man. I want a little girl more than anything in my life. And so, I just want a little girl. And Cassie never wanted to be a mom. That was never her goal. She always talked about how she didn't want to be a mom, probably because her mom's crazy. Just kidding. I have to laugh through these things sometimes. We were so excited. If you remember after Serve Day, if you've been here for a while, after Serve Day, we actually announced it here on a Sunday morning, if you were here for that. The worst kept secret in the world, by the way. And just excited. And we go on, we go to Arizona, and we do all these different things, and we go on all these trips, and just excited. And there's one week, and you're gonna call me stupid for this, but it's what it is. There's one week we were sitting there. It was the week of my birthday. My birthday's on August 20th, write that down. And it was the week of my birthday, and I just got this kind of wild hair of, hey, you know what? There's a really cool wrestling show in Chicago, and I really want to go to that. I, personally, you're gonna say it's stupid, but I'll handle this. I always want to take my kids to a wrestling show. I love wrestling. Get a plane and go to Chicago, and we go and watch wrestling, and it was great, and we come home. And as we get home, we're actually gonna have, the weekend we get home, we're actually gonna have a gender reveal party that Sunday night. And so we get home, and we have to go to the doctor and go check on the gender and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a kind of routine thing, really, just a routine kind of event. And so we go there, and we go to the doctor, and the doctor tells us that the baby doesn't have a heartbeat. And I don't know what you do in those moments. And this is the moments that I'll never get past. But there's not a heart. And so we have to make some decisions about things that I didn't know we had to make decisions on. When Cassie first told me she was pregnant, I got online, I went to Amazon, and I bought a little book about that thick. And it was a book they're called books of memories. And I bought this book, and what I wanted to do in it was, every day I wanted to write in that book my prayers for her. And when she was born, I thought it'd be cool to give it to her, and she could have it the rest of her life. The prayers I had, God, I pray that you would save her soul. God, I pray that she would, God, I pray that she'd love wrestling. God, I pray that she'd be beautiful. God, I pray that she would be an awesome, like she'd be like her mama. God, I pray she wouldn't be like her dad. I pray that she would be all these different things. And I wrote this book, and every day in my quiet time, I'd get there and I'd read and I'd pray, and then I'd write down things. God, I pray she'd be a leader. God, I pray that she would be incredible. And I didn't know it was a she at that point, but I was just writing these prayers down. And we write these prayers down, and just the hope and the dreams that I have. In the hospital, when they told us that she didn't have a heartbeat, Cassie had to go through she had to give birth still. It's awful, and I don't want to get into all of that for you. But maybe the worst moment of my life is we're sitting there, and she's about to give birth to a baby that's not breathing, that's not there anymore. And I remember her grabbing a hold of the hospital bed and her saying, I don't want to do this. I said, I know, baby, I know. We're going to go home soon. She said, I want to do this because when we do this, they're going to take her from us and she won't be ours anymore. And in that moment, that's where everything. We go through it. She gives birth. And I get to hold the most incredible. We asked the nurse, like, what gender? It's a little girl. And I always had a dream of naming my girl. I always had a dream of naming her Elizabeth after a young woman who invited me to church. Her name was Beth. I always wanted to name her after her because of what Beth did in my life. And she named her Elizabeth Jane after her mom. And we had to make some decisions, what we're going to do. And all I remember is we went through that whole horrific time 3 months ago today. And we have to give up our baby. And all they gave us was this. We gave the hospital the baby and they gave us a box. Remember, and this is the most precious thing in my world. I don't know your grief. I don't know your pain. I don't know the darkness in your life. And it's not fair, it's not easy. I want my little girl back. I don't want to be planning out what we're going to put on a grave anymore. I want to be planning out what we're going to I want to be planning out angel trees and all these things. I just want to have a little girl with me. And I remember sitting there at her funeral, and I got the book that I was writing all these prayers in. And I'm sorry, I know we're going long. But I was writing the prayers, that book that I was writing all the prayers in. I got the book, and I wanted it to be buried with her. So I got the book out, and I got the pen, and Cass and I sat there. And I got the pen out, and I wrote on it, I just said, I'll see you soon. I can't wait to meet you. With everything inside of me, I want to meet her. With everything inside of me, I want to get to know her. With everything inside of me, I want to be able to say, when I get to heaven, a hug and let her tell me about all the things that she's seen already. But in that moment, as I was writing that out there, I'll see you soon. I gave it to the person and let them put it in the casket. I said, God, what are you doing here? God, what are you doing? God, what's your plan? And all I heard God say to me was, am I not enough for you? And I promise you, at that moment, my mind shifted because God is enough for me. In that moment, my life changed because God is more than enough for me. And it went from I only had 20 weeks with her to, man, I got to have the best 20 weeks of my entire life with this little girl. And that even though that she's not here anymore, she gets to be up in heaven. She gets to go meet a lady named Barbara Bond. She gets to go and walk golden streets with Ed Kellogg. She gets to go and walk down roads with a Mandy Shepherd. She gets to go play jump rope with a Nora White. She gets to go walk into these areas, into these moments that I'll never understand. And though it hurts me inside, she's better off. And in your grief, I don't know what it feels like, but here's what I know, and here's what I hope today, that Jesus would just put his hand on your pain. right? That if Jesus could if you would just open your mind up enough to let Jesus put his hand right here, if you would just open up your pain enough to let Jesus put his hand here, he can fix all of that. He can change all of that. He can break those chains of pain and addiction. He can break those things that are hurting you. And here's what I believe. Even though my life hurts right now, I'm not always gonna live this way. Cassie and I are not always gonna live heartbroken, because I believe that joy is coming. Though pain may last for a night, joy comes in the morning. In the middle of your grief, God's about to bring you back to life. In your grief, God's about to bring those dreams back to you. I believe with all of my heart, in church, I hope you believe it too, that God's gonna touch the coffin of your life. He's gonna touch the box in your life, and he's about to bring you back to life. That things aren't gonna sit there like they've always sat there, that your pain isn't gonna be there forever, that we can come back to life with Jesus. If you would, let's stand up to our feet, and in the middle of hurt and pain, let's worship God with everything inside of us. Let's believe that he's about to bring us back to life.
To the feet of Jesus, everything in the name of Jesus. This is the house of miracles. We sing, come alive in the name of Jesus. Come alive in the name. This is the house of miracles. And we bring everything to the feet of Jesus. Everything to the name of Jesus. This is the house of miracles. And we sing, come alive in the name of Jesus. Come alive in the name. And this is the house of miracles. And we bring everything to the feet of Jesus. Everything in the name of Jesus. This is the house of miracles. So come alive in the name of Jesus. Come alive in the name.
Thanks for watching this sermon on our Hillspring YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it, take just a moment, hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss a single thing. Secondly, if this message has impacted you and you want to help reach others, visit our website at hillspring.tv. Hit that Give Now button to help us carry the hope of Christ around the world. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.